So, good day, sir. Good day, classmates. Our assigned topic is Chapter 3 Nature of the Self and its Cultural Concept. Nature of the Self with Society and Culture. It is academically significant that the self will be studied, preserved, and understood. It is vital to know where a Filipino adolescent came from and what cultural reason he or she has embraced, where it is also personally necessary. When we are more self aware, we are better at understanding ourselves. We're then able to identify changes we want to make and recognize our strengths so we can build on them. Self awareness um, gives us the capacity to look inward and understand our own feelings, emotions, stressors, and personality. These key understandings play a critical role in influencing our judgments, decisions, and interactions with other people. This includes admitting when you don't have the answer and owning up to mistakes. Teenagers' interaction with people are sometimes slightly misjudged, misunderstood in other way around, labeled as behaviorally complicated, could be a form of defense mechanism according to Sigmund Freud. Defense mechanisms are psychological strategies that are unconsciously used to protect a person from anxiety arising from unacceptable thoughts or feelings. According to Freudian theory, defense mechanisms involve a distortion of reality in ways so that we are better able to cope with the situation. In history, it could also be a sudden response of adolescents' conformity to the norm of where he or she lived with. These are transparently transmitted from generation to generation. So, as you start rewinding our own cultural history and self, Philippine published a book entitled Family, the Seat of Education, has a beautiful message to every adolescent saying, every man being made in the image and likeness of God deserves a minimum regard. But to the Filipino, social acceptance has so strong a hold that it can be watered down or reduced to a facility at getting along with others in such a ways as to avoid outward signs of conflict. Genesis chapter 1 verse 27 stated that God created man in his own image. This means that humans are in the image of God in their moral, spiritual, and intellectual nature. When rejected or criticized, the Filipinos' attitude has never been confrontational. So all of us um, have this kind of attitude. Sometimes we try not to meet the issue head on, avoids being brutally frank, and tiptoes around the premises before introducing touchy topic, and does not push his or her way around nor broach his self-esteem. And social scientists call this smooth interpersonal relations or SIR. SIR or smooth interpersonal relationships are a core value for every Filipino community. They involve a shared identity, engagement on an equal basis with others, and giving importance to the individual versus agencies or institutions. SIR is acquired and preserved through what is commonly called pakikisama. Pakikisama comes from the Tagalog root sama, which means to accompany or go along with. It refers to the yielding rather than asserting. Typical adolescent behavior exemplifies this very well. This is according from Southeast Asian Science Foundation 1990. In our dialect, dalawang klase ang patutunguhan ng pakikisama. First is, we can influence someone, or maybe we will be influenced. This do not just happen to teenagers, but even to adults, conforming too much to suggestions of others. As added from the book of Southeast Asian Science Foundation, when a teenager is prodded by peers to give us his or her study hours and watch a movie instead, he or she could choose to say no. However, sometimes he or she may give in to pakikisama and go with public opinion. Pakikisama here becomes an obstacle rather than a means for self-development. Because those naman jud tay mga classmates or friends nga mo dala jud nato mga hagda so nga na nahimon na siyang obstacle imbis mag-focus sa studies or unsa. On the other hand, pakikisama may be expressed positively in lusong or bayanihan. I know that no one or nang wala ka sulay o pangayutabang. So, to the Filipino, every service received, solicited or not, demands a return according to the relative status of the parties involved. But if there is a disproportion between the giver and the receiver, utang na loob or debt of gratitude results. Utang na loob is first featured as part of the Philippine life in 1663 when Colon said that the kabalangay or resident of the barangay attached to a dato may give of the proceeds of his efforts because of the paternalistic relationship between the ruler and the ruled. Whenever they needed anything, the kabalangay simply went to the dato for help. In return, they will offer service to the dato for helping them. There is also an intra-family utang na loob. A Tagalog saying goes, ang hindi marunong lumingon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makakarating sa paroroonan. Children are expected to be everlastingly grateful to their parents. This attitude helps to bind the family even more as the children recognize the hardship that childbearing entails. So, yan na, if mahuman ka eskwela like nanakitrabaho, you need to help your family, especially your younger siblings, as a in return to the hardship and sacrifices of your parents. Sometimes, a family member may opt to stay with a wealthier relative to earn his or her keep. Utang na loob results from this arrangement for the relatives who adopted develops filial ties with the adopted family until his death. The use of intermediary also facilitates smooth interpersonal relations. A go-between must possess the qualities of wittiness, smooth speech, and remedial friendliness. So, a go-between is a person who takes messages between people who are unable or unwilling to meet each other. It is indicated by Warka 1502 that the service of the go-between may also be asked for the following reasons. First is for marriage proposals, or during the papanikan, where the hand of the sweetheart is officially asked of the parents of the bride-to-be. Second is for making an embarrassing request, complaint, or decision, and for remedying an existing state of conflict or tension. This is the sanction of hiya or shame, an uncomfortable feeling that accompanies awareness of being in a socially unacceptable position. Anything that brings about hiya is avoided. This accounts for the complexity of dialogue among Filipinos. The inclusion of family is to be expected considering the close kinship ties among Filipinos. It also emphasizes the importance that is placed on self-esteem. As the Filipino saying goes, hindi baling wag mo akong mahalin, wag mo lang akong hiyain. Filipinos believe that they must live up to the accepted standards of behavior and make it a point not to cause another person's embarrassment. Being matiisin sa hiya is not just observed at home, but is usually experienced by many poor Filipinos in the community where they belong. Due to financial constraints, sometimes most parents try to figure out this way that they can afford to be litigated to court for as long as their children's tuition fees are paid, and some can afford to even be imprisoned for as long as their children are safe and successful.
Mama at papa ng ilang buwan sa pagiging laborers nila at napakarami pang ganito na magkasalungat na istorya. So the lender will be mad and discuss things at the barangay or maybe sought the borrower to court. Ang lender masuko sa mga pag-discuss sa mga butang na sa barangay or maybe so the borrower to court or madiretso sila sa korte. These are the things teenagers did not know, that to overcome trials within the limits of poverty gravely affects some dispositions in family life. Muni ang mga butang nga sa mga katawan or mga ilutawo nga wa nila mahibalan kung unsaon pag-overcome sa mga trials or sa mga paglapas sa mga pagsubok na mabot nimo. Within the limit of poverty, gravity affects some dispositions in the family. Now, let's be realistic. Here comes what teenagers need to know that most parents want to know. Karon, realistic ta og unsa gilayan sa mga litawo o ilang gustong mahibalan o sa mga ginikanan na gustong mahitabo. A. Prevent children from self-pity over improvised situation. B. Preserve self-image of the family. And C. Maintain family survival. Another interesting Filipino traits according to Southeast Asian Science Foundation, the pwede na or okay lang mentally something below standard or less than perfect is acceptable. Akala ko attitude, not bothering to investigate or inquire or find out kanya-kanya or maybe first mentally and kasi alibi. However, this may be seen among a few. A study still has to be made to justify calling this as a Filipino traits. Self-awareness. According to Garner 1982 as cited by De La Cruz, Lazo, and Mapwe 2005, P30-31, there are a number of factors that the children should know about self-awareness. They should know dagan ang mga numerong factors na dapat yung may baan sa mga bata kabayan sa self-awareness. 1. Be aware of their own body, its appearance, state, and size, body size. 2. Be able to refer to themselves appropriately through language and be able to distinguish descriptions which apply to set and which do not. B. Be aware of their own personal history, experience, they have had skills and ability, acquire their own needs and wishes. Kinahanglan silang ma-aware sa ilang ilang kaugaling personal history o sa ilang mga naandan, mga experiences nila o sa ilang mga skills o sa ilang mga abilities para ma-account ang kaugalingong needs and mga pangandoy or wishes. It only shows that anyone can have self-awareness if she will be able to adapt and adjust from the impulse and pressures of people around. Likewise, if we live up on the expectation and literally up on the society standards, then a well-balanced interpersonal and interpersonal strengths would later develop into a positive performance. Positive emotional self-awareness. Mastering the self means being totally aware of who you are and what you are. Pag-master ane sa self means para mahibal-anim og sikinsa ka og unsa ka. Capable of doing this also means that you know your limitation and weakness. Kanisad mahibal-an nimo asa kataman og unsa imong kahinaan. Collectively, we provide enough self-analysis as to know we need to counteract this negative difference and emotional fancies. It is through accepting the environment we engage in that sometimes affect our in journeys to learn while we acquire new lessons in life. Similarly, in order to have a positive emotional awareness and strongly conform to people, the best approaches that we can set are the following in 1. D. Know of his, her attitude, boundaries, and limitations. Ibala ang iyang personalidad, iyang pagkatao, o iyang mga attitude, o iyang limitasyon. E. Trace the source why the situation conflict happen. I-trace po nimo ang rason, mga sitwasyon, o nganong nahitabo ni. F. Preempts the possible way if he, she negatively respond. G. Determines the possible way if she, he positively understand, and H. Counts 100 before expressing emotions. Sa to sa ang mga possible nga nahitabo og siya gyud nakasabot og usa nimo ikuan imo ang comment, counts 100 before expressing emotion. Self-esteem. In the study of David Astelia and Estelia in 1980, it titled Self-Esteem and Family Relationship, found out that adolescents with close family ties and mutually interacting were positively influenced that added high self-esteem. It is interesting that their study considers a better sense of perception towards family has a bigger connection with high self-esteem. Added to the study purpose that family is significant in the improvement and growth of adolescents' self-worth, and that poor relationship with family results to low self-worth based on the findings of Pedrosa 2006.P75 of second-year college students of University of Southern Philippines Tagum campus. The following conclusion are stated. 1. The participants of the study have high perception of themselves in the three aspects, namely the physical, material self, social self, and personal spiritual self. Ang participant nag-study na siya high or pagsalig sa perception or dako siya salig sa kagalingon in the three aspects, kanang physical o material self, social self, and personal and spiritual self. 2. 35% of 40 and 43% of the participants of the study are marginal speakers or below average. It is conclude that the participants' high perception of themselves does not have any effects on their own competence. 3. There is a significant relationship between the physical material self and the oral competence in English of the second-year college students. Na ay mga significance na relasyon between sa physical material self and the oral competence in English of second-year college students. 4. There is no significant relationship sa social self and oral competence in English of the second-year college students. Wala sila kaya number 4, lahat ni siya sa number 3. Kaya number 4, wala siya significant relationship sa social self and oral competence sa English second-year college students. 5. There is a significant relationship between the personal spiritual self and the oral competence in English of the second-year college. O, kani number 5, nanasad siya significant relationship sa usad usa kaning personal, spiritual self and oral competence in English of the second year college students. 6. There is a significant relationship between self-esteem and oral competence in English of the second year college students of the University of Southeastern Southeastern Southeast Philippines at alpha 0.05 level of significance but low correlation. Considering the findings of Pedrosa 2006 P.76-77, the following were recommended. The students would be provided with extensive training in public speaking, social grace, etiquette, and personal development since physical material self has been found to be related with oral competence. Kanang estudyante, kinahanglan siya ma-provide og extensive training or hasaon siya sa pagsanay in a public speaking, social grace, and other and personal development since physical material self has been found to be related with an oral competence. So, sensitive training may also be introduced to give more opportunities to study for self-reflections and knowledge of their personhood since personal spiritual self has been found to be related with oral competence. 3. Since 35% of or 43% of the participants are marginal, speakers more opportunities should be provided to them in terms of varied activities that will provide challenge and enhancement of their oral competence. 4. More challenging opportunities activities should be introduced by teachers in their lessons that involve students and express themselves in situations not only in English subjects but in other subjects across the curriculum. Kaya number 4, kang more challenging o mas daghan pa ang mga challenge sa mga opportunities o activities, kinahanglan nid silang i-introduce sa ilang mga teachers on their lessons that involve na-involve sa estudyante to express ilang kaugalingon sa sitwasyon not only in English subject but also in another subject. Five, the teachers in all subjects be required to communicate in English so that code switching will be avoided. Ang teachers sa tanang subject kinahanglan required din siya para makikommunicate sa English so that kanang code dili mo switch o di pud mahiapel. 6. A similar study with large sample may be conducted to confirm the relationship between self-esteem and oral competence. 7. A recommendation for the school will be to adopt self-esteem enhancement programs and utilize them to increase self-esteem for all students. Ang recommendation yun sa eskwelahan kanang mo-adapt sila self-esteem to enhance or para ma-improve o kana programs and ma-utilize sila
How self interrelates with self-schemas. The differences between self-concept, self-esteem, social self, and self-knowledge are the following. Self-concept is cognitive or perceptive bearing of the self. Example, I am a good listener. The next one is self-esteem. Self-esteem is evaluative and dogmatic. Example, I am proud being a good listener. Next is social self. Social self is normative or collective. Example, I am proud because my teachers told me that I am a good listener. Self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is self-mastery or self-apprehension. Example, I know in many ways that I am a good listener. In fact, I can listen while I read. I've done that several times. The self-concept is comprised of one's self-schemas as it interacts favorably with self-esteem, self-knowledge, and social self in order to design the self fully. It contains the past, present, and future selves, where future selves characterize one's ideas of what one visibly be in life, which is also known as possible selves, that directs an individual to gain a motivation as a form of reinforcement that certainly change behavior. What one intend to be or what one is frightened. The Youth for Christ or Couple for Christ, Family Crusaders for Christ, and other social religious ministries should intensify and sustain their programs focusing in the interpersonal relationship of the youth. Fifth, resource speakers should be tapped for students' personality development seminars as well as deepening their self-concept. Sixth, faculty should be sent to post-education studies, trainings, and seminars to further equip themselves with more strategies in the effective teaching-learning process. 7. A therapeutic aid from an expert or trained behaviorist should be given to the students who encounter severe emotional disturbance. Pedrosa 2006 differs from that of Silva's adolescent study on self-concept in the assertion of individual responses, whether affecting academic performance or not, but it both emerged almost a similar impact on assessing self-knowledge through strengths and limitations of adolescents. The study of Vatican 2011 revealed that measuring self-concept was never easy, especially citing adolescents. According to Dr. Vatican, there had been self-concept assessments, but intended chiefly for children and adults with few measuring instruments among adolescents. In comparison, Herlock 1982 emphasized that successful adolescents will be in their attempts to improve their personalities also depends on the following factors, to quote, first, they must set ideals that are realistic and attainable for them. Second, they must make a realistic assessment of their strengths and weaknesses. Third, adolescents must have stable self-concepts. Fourth, and most of all, adolescents must be reasonably well satisfied with their achievements and eager to make improvements in any area in which they feel deficient. Intent of developing. Self-concept. The study of Silva 2005 on attitudes towards family, gender, interpersonal relationships, and self-concept in relation to academic performance basis for guidance services program was considered as one of the evidences coming up with this finding that, first, the study's respondents are all adolescents in all third-year level, aging 15 years old. Second, respondents have severe emotional conflict towards father, though they have positive attitude towards family. Third, students have healthy concepts about women and heterosexual relationships. Fourth, respondents have a feeling of uncomfortable relationship with friends. Fifth, students have well-adjusted interpersonal relationship with peer groups in terms of handling and managing group works activities. Sixth, students have emotional disturbance towards fears and feelings which may have been caused by emotional conflict experienced from friends. The last one is there is no significant relationship between respondents' attitudes towards the different areas of adjustment as in family, gender, interpersonal relationship, and self-concept. In view of Silva's findings, the following recommendations were offered. First, the Parents and Teachers Association should be maintained and parents should be tapped on matters involving their children's behaviors and academic performance. Second, gender and development should be organized and set it as part of the guidance services to tackle concerns on gender needs, gender roles, and gender issues. Third, the Department of Education should integrate in the curriculum the basic concept of gender development and parenting styles and its roles in the child's growth and development in the curricula.